80% of developers worldwide are unhappy because they work years only to hit a financial ceiling they never expected. And by the time they realize it, they've wasted years, if not decades, stuck in the same loop. Over the past decade, I've had the privilege of working closely with hundreds of engineers, from fresh graduates to industry veterans. And I myself, having started as a junior developer, I worked myself all the way up to leading multi-million-dollar projects at Fortune 500 companies, and now I run my own 7-figure B2B consulting firm. And in all that time, I've seen one mistake hold back more engineers than anything else. No matter how talented they may be, no matter how hard they may work, this one mistake keeps them from reaching their full potential. Today, I'm going to reveal exactly what that mistake is, how you can actually avoid it entirely or fix it if it's already too late, and most importantly, how to make sure that you never repeat that mistake ever again. To understand this mistake, I have to tell you a story about Le Cirque, a famous restaurant in New York City. You see, back in its prime, Le Cirque was the place to be. They were known for their delicious French food and fancy atmosphere, and it really wasn't just a restaurant, it was an actual experience for many people. Celebrities, politicians, high society folks, everybody went there, drawn to their elegant meals and top-tier service. And for years, Le Cirque was incredibly successful. They had perfected their craft, just like how a skilled software engineer masters several languages and frameworks. Le Cirque did the same exact thing in the culinary world. But then things started to change. People no longer wanted fancy, formal dining experiences. Instead, they wanted variety, creativity, and more of a relaxed place to eat. New restaurants with exciting menus and a casual vibe started popping up, drawing younger crowds. But Le Cirque didn't adjust. They kept serving the same classic dishes, believing that since it had always been successful, nothing needed to change. And over time, the restaurant lost its relevance. Even though the food was still good, new diners stopped coming. It struggled financially, shut down, reopened and moved locations, but it never regained its old glory. And you know what the sad truth is? Le Cirque didn't fail because it wasn't good at what it did. It failed because it didn't adapt to what the world wanted next. And the same exact pattern plays out in the careers of many software engineers. They become too comfortable just writing code. They think that if they keep mastering the latest frameworks, tools, and programming languages, they'll stay ahead of the curve. But just like Le Cirque, the tech world is always changing. New tools, new expectations, and new priorities emerge every single day. If you don't adapt, if you only focus on technical skills, you'll eventually hit a wall. And by the time you realize what's happening, it might already be too late. Promotions will pass you by, you will stagnate financially, and years will pass. So if technical skills aren't enough, what should you be focusing on? Well, to understand that, let me tell you a personal story. You see, early in my career, I thought technical skills were everything. After all, I was a kid in my 20s working a 6-figure software engineering job. I worked hard, learned the new frameworks, and always stayed on top of the latest trends. But I noticed something strange. While I was buried in programming, others who weren't nearly as technically skilled as me were getting promoted faster. They were being assigned to high-profile projects, they were being invited to key meetings, and they were being trusted with leadership roles. Meanwhile, I felt invisible. I couldn't figure it out at first. I thought, why am I not being recognized when I'm doing great work? Then it hit me. They weren't just focusing on writing code. They were focusing on influence. They knew how to make their work actually visible. They communicated their ideas clearly, they collaborated with other people, and they also aligned their work with the company's goals. And the impact of their work? It wasn't left to chance. They actually made sure that everybody knew about it. And when I realized that, I shifted my approach drastically. I stopped focusing just on what I was building and started thinking about how my work actually connected to the company's bigger goals. I made sure that I wasn't just solving technical problems, but rather I was driving business outcomes with what I was doing. Influence is what drives growth. It's not just about writing great code. It's about communicating the value of that code to the business. And once I made that shift, everything changed. I started getting promoted every 8 to 9 months. It took me only 3 years to go from junior to manager level. Suddenly, I was leading teams, working on high-impact projects, and eventually managing engineers. Some of them were twice my age. And that's the real power of influence. It doesn't just get you promoted. It does a lot more than that. It opens doors that you didn't even know existed in the first place. And influence is the bridge between being a great engineer and becoming a leader, whether that's inside a company or in your own business. And speaking of your own business, let's talk about entrepreneurship. You see, you need to think of your career like a train on a track. As a software engineer, your technical skills are the engine. They give you momentum, help you move forward, and get you from point A to point B. And early on, that engine works well. You follow the rails, hit all the right stations, junior developer, mid-level engineer, maybe even senior engineer if you're lucky. But here's the thing, if you only rely on the engine and the track that somebody else laid out for you, you're always limited to where that track takes you. No matter how fast or powerful your engine is, you're still stuck following a path that somebody else built. And one day, the track will end. And that's the ceiling that most engineers hit. They've got a powerful engine, but nowhere else to go. So what's the alternative? Well, it's shifting from being an engineer to being a pilot. A pilot doesn't follow somebody else's track. They chart their own track, decide their own direction, and figure out how to navigate through uncertainty. And that's exactly what an entrepreneur does. They leave the safety of the rails that they have and fly into unknown territory, where they have the freedom to actually create their own path. And once you stop relying on somebody else's track, the sky isn't even the limit. You stop thinking in terms of job titles, promotions, or waiting for somebody to hand you an opportunity. Instead, you start asking questions like, what can I build that aligns with my vision? How can I create value that actually makes me indispensable? So here's the bottom line. The biggest mistake that software engineers make is focusing too much on technical skills. The engineers who thrive in this world are ones who understand influence, the power to communicate, building relationships, and driving impact. But the real game changer is actually thinking like an entrepreneur. And when you take ownership of your career, you stop waiting for somebody else to give you opportunities. You begin creating your own opportunities. And if you want me to walk you through the best way to transition from employee to entrepreneur, especially if you're wondering how to get started while still working your current 9-to-5 job, then you need to check out this video next. As always, thank you for watching.